2021. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I'll go ahead and start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I get a roll call, please, sir?
Ms. Combs?
Here.
Mr. Ricks? Here. Mr. Smith? Here. Mr. Swayze?
Here.
Mr. Underwood?
There. Brings us to 3.0 modification approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to modify or approve the agenda?
I'll move to strike 5.1 off the agenda.
All right, do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any other motions to modify the agenda? All right, hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries, the agenda is approved. All right, that brings us to open forum. Last I saw, Mrs. Moore was the only one signed up on the list. Calling once. She's not in attendance virtually that I can gather. Okay. Brings us to 5.0 consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Combs. Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. That brings us to 6.1, board member comments. Mr. Swayze, sir. Member comments, you have another section later on for search committee update.
I was getting ready to ask you that.
Yep.
No, I'm good.
All right, Mr. Ricks, sir.
I just want to say thank you for everyone putting the effort in and going right back to school. From everything that I've seen, it's been flawless. There might be, of course, some internal things that we don't see, but from everything that's been communicated, school pickup, drop off, meals, everything seems to have just went right going. So I just want to say thank you and really appreciate it to the entire faculty and the leadership that we have here at the district.
Awesome. Mr. Smith, sir. Mrs. Combs.
I just want to say welcome back to school, and thank you to all the staff and all of the parents and the students for showing up, and for the parents for trusting us with your students, for the students for showing up. And I know a lot of them are excited to be back. My daughter is super excited, and from what she tells me, everything is great. It's been a smooth transition. And then thanks to all the maintenance staff for keeping the building clean and ensuring that they have a safe environment to come back to.
Awesome. Thank you. So for those of you who have the memory of an elephant, at our last special board meeting, I misspoke publicly about the status of Ms. Cheeseman. And so I want to publicly speak and revoke what was a gross assumption on my part. And I apologize for any confusion I may have injected into the universe. I hope to, hear some status in your comments about how the back to in-person learning has gone so far this week. So pending that, I yield the rest of my time, sir.
Thank you. Am I allowed to do this? Because you don't hear me.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm
So,
okay with it.
It's your policy. You tell me, sir.
Everybody's 6 foot away from you. I would say yes.
I just want to make sure you're here. So, first order of business then. Ms. Cheeseman, will you please stand up? And take a bow. And I am not being funny about it. She got the LG grant.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, we are aware.
$100,000, 4 years. The hours this lady put into it, and she had a little help, but she is the initiator of this. And what she is going to do for Prairie Heights, and you'll remember with my 100-day goal, was to get some vertical alignment and support for the staff. And what I will say too is I misspoke at DAC, so I'll apologize to the PHE staff publicly. I said I was complimenting Ms. Cheeseman and all that she was doing and all this will do for the school and will get the teachers where we need to be was taken wrong. It's a help and resource to get the professionals what they need, not where they need to be. So I publicly will say that and thank you for the feedback. But the LG grant is official. We have it. And I just can't say enough except thank you for your commitment to the kids and the staff over there. Just amazing. I've been doing it for a while and Brett and I both talked and said, that's just off the charts for your first year inaugural as a principal to take the initiative and do something like that for our community. I don't know how else to say it, but thank you.
Yeah, and so the cool part is, correct me if I'm mistaken, is we get that first year's money this year. Yeah, so we get $100,000 here in the next couple of months.
There's a lot of pieces she's going to speak to as we evolve it, but it's much more in depth than what I'm alluding. But just please, I just can't say enough. So that is, as I put in my notes, happy note first.
Hold on. Kudos and thank you again. That was
Yes,
awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I started my report off with a little different tone because it's all so negative. So I started with happy note first. Happy note number 2 was I sent some pictures. The junior high school PTA got together, and Chuck was a part of this too, and did an outreach distribution for students at Christmas. And we got recognized in the paper. Chuck, what paper was?
The,
Fountain
the Fountain News and one other one.
came out, and I put those in there and took some pictures. It's just great that the community that's not here gets to see all the good that is
Yeah.
here and that's being done. And it's by what's happening here. So that's happy note number 2. Happy note number 3, I know, it's good, is PHE did a toy and food drive. And Miss Cheeseman's crew was student council. Again, what we're trying to do, and Miss Cheeseman is doing a great job with it, is as we refer a lot, and anybody listening, John Hattie again, sorry. Student-owned learning has an effect size of 1.41, and we want kids to own their schools, plain flat out. This is evidence that they're doing it. We have little flowers here that Ivy League, when we were doing a tour last night, I was just checking in with the teachers, and we saw Ivy League working with Miss Moody. And so what are you guys doing? They're just doing stuff for Valentine's Day and fundraising, but it was their idea to say, would that be cool if the board? Yeah. So you'll be getting a bill later.
Mhm.
Just saying.
We figured this
President.
out.
Just take care of that.
Well, they
Thank
are
you.
marketers. We are teaching business and finance also. We're
Yeah.
just going there. Okay. Next order of business, note number 4. I mentioned earlier in December board meeting, ESSER 1 grant. Pat and I, December 20, whatever it was that Monday. ESSER 1 is elementary and secondary CARES money, the acronym I'm abbreviating, but it's CARES relief funds. We had 43K that we wrote a grant for. January 5th, we got it. We went, whoa, that was quick. Well, the better news of happy news 2, 4 is what I meant, is that ESSER 2 now is out. And the state has gotten $519 million from relief money that people will be able to apply for. That we're hoping is going to happen next week, I think. And we've done through it. We got approved. The sum is quite substantially larger. And if we get what we think we're going to get, it's going to be a game changer. So speaking to budget, that's will be our transitioning.
What kind? I mean, this is the second time I've heard this now. So are we talking 100,000, 500,000, million? What are we talking when you say substantially larger?
Yes. So
Way to put him on the spot.
I don't want to release that yet because we have a number of reliable sources we've gotten from CDE, nobody else. But with the way economy is working, I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
So publicly, I want to say, just keep positive thoughts happening.
So it's kind of an arbitrary, it's gonna be a larger number, but how it's shaped out isn't necessarily firmed up yet.
It is correct.
Okay.
Yes. So if we know how to do it now, if we get what we think we're going to get, trust me, you'll be the first to know. Okay.
Awesome.
That will be second.
All right. Happy note number 5.
Number 5 is.
Well,
Mr.
you didn't
Williams.
preface
say
it that with
happy
happy note.
Oh, happy note number 5. So Mr. Williams, please stand up.
And leave. You're fired.
And
Oh.
trying to retain staff.
This is a happy note.
So Mr. Williams has just done an amazing thing. The COVID challenges have been cumbersome, to say the least. And our athletic director, assistant principal, give him the title, went out and said no. The challenges with basketball and a mask is horrific. We're having teams drop out. We had our first game just drop out yesterday already. It's happening. So what he did, in case we have to comply, is parents. We've got to make sure parents can see their kids play. Well, if they can't be allowed in the building, he went out and found a way. And that's with these cameras. I'm going to let him speak to that right now.
Please.
All right. And I am taking this off. So this actually goes back to 2019, 2020, when the PixLock camera system was presented to us through CHASA, Colorado High School Activities Association, our governing body, via the NFHS, National Federation for High School Sports. They started promoting the PixLock camera system and promoting it in a way where CHASA wasn't saying we had to, but we had this choice. And we could contact the PixLock camera system, the vendor themselves, via the NFHS, and we could get these systems installed into our buildings and our facilities like our football field. What held me back in 1920 was what holds many of us back in schools and in districts was this big S with 1 or 2 vertical lines going through it. All right, it was either going to be $1,500 or $2,500. So, knowing that our budget was in kind of a limited status, said, Tim and I talked a little bit about it last year, but it's like, no. Again, then going into this school year, 2020-21, CHASA again sent this information out. And the message to us was that, hey, more schools across the nation are getting on, and especially under the circumstances that our entire country and world are under. Hey, more schools are saying, let's try to live stream. And again, the dollar sign was attached to it. And again, with our budget the way it was, we thought just may not be in our best interest. And it worked out really for us benefit-wise because fans could come watch our football games because they're outside. The restrictions, as you all know, were much more lenient, relatively speaking, than they are going indoors, which we're about to do with basketball, then volleyball. Come January 4th, CHASA comes out and says, okay, here's when our season's rolling. Here's what we're doing. Boom, 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 boom. I reached out to the vendor, Sean Hennessy, Northwest Territory Manager with the NFHS. And I said, you know what? Just want to know, what are the odds? Can we pull this off? And he says, Brett, I got a deal for you. He says, it's not going to cost you a dime. He goes, you and your school and facilities and your tech people, if you can install it, it's not going to cost you a dime. We will take on subscriptions for the first 3 years. In year 4 and year 5, any subscriptions, we then get a kickback of 10%. Not an inordinate amount, but we still get something back from them. And so I started working with Sean, and I started working with their onboarding team,
and Chuck has read through everything, and Mitch, our tech guy, has read through everything. And it's nothing that is not within our capacity. The nice thing about the system is that we have full 100% total control as far as when the camera goes on, when the camera goes off. Now, initially, I was under the impression that the Pixelot camera system and the NFHS had more control because we had to provide their schedule to them. But in reading and speaking with Sean, the rep, and speaking with fellow ADs at ECA, at Peyton, at Callahan, they're like, yeah, Brett, that's what we had to do initially. But once they have our information and they've given us, our information for us to have at the school, we can control exactly when it starts. We can control when it stops. We can, if Coach Register comes to me, hey, Brett, will you record my practice tonight? I need to at least have about 15 to 30 minutes of leeway time to program that in and set it up so the system can click on. But boom, practice starts at 4:15, start. And at about 3:45, it had to be doing that. Practice ends at 6:15, already got a program, camera kicks off. We can leave the camera running. It is in the gym. It is a classroom. Really, it serves no different purpose than our security cameras up and down the hallways. But it's a tool that we can use, again, at no cost to us, other than for the cable and wiring that we have to do. But when you look at that cost for that cable, and Chuck uses that cable for many other purposes other than just this camera system, it's very minimal what we have an opportunity to do. And I requested one camera, and Sean says, nah, we'll send them both to you. So we're going to have one for our football field also, and that'll be connected up through our Wi-Fi. And there'll be some things that we'll have to navigate through that. But it's a system that I think will benefit us, even if we're out of COVID, which we will be someday soon, hopefully. All right, grandparents in another state, relatives in another state, parents in the military, halfway around the world. It's
So
streaming.
I'll be able to live stream our football games. Awesome.
That's cool.
So what's the subscription cost? So if I understood right, for me to watch the game, I'm gonna have to pay a subscription?
Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
know
sir.
what that cost is?
I believe, don't quote me, even though I am live and on the mic, I believe it's around $15.95, $17.95 a month, something like that. And some people might go, that's kind of steep. But if Danielle and her husband walk into a game, each one pays $6. Actually, Danielle gets in for free, but husband might pay $6. Okay, there's $12 right there for one game. If we have 5 home games, well, 5 times 12, $60. You've definitely paid for it after 2 games for your subscription.
Well, and you
I like
haven't
it.
mentioned the boosters and what people
Right?
normally spend with the boosters.
Yeah,
So it's
there-
about
Yeah.
$100.
There's some
Yeah,
families that have
The same.
Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
families that, have lots of children and.
And hit the concession stands hard. And
concession stands
That's
hard
the
and
kid's
all
favorite
that.
part, right?
And here's the other thing too. We can also, a couple things that's really cool about it is one, it can connect up to our football score clock.
wow.
And that then live streams the score, the down, the quarter, everything while
Huh.
you're watching it.
That's fantastic.
Now, the camera in the gym has one camera, if I understand it correctly, and Chuck, okay, that focuses right on the scoreboard. And so it's not connected to the score clock, but it's reading the score clock, what's going on while you're watching.
And you can do a little picture-in-picture kind of thing, maybe.
Nice.
So
The other thing, real quick, my apologies, is that we can go out and get sponsorships. All right. Arby's, Taco Bell.
IKEA.
Yes. Exactly. Yes. All of the sponsorships that we get, all of that money comes back to us as a school.
Nice.
So
I have a quick question.
I have
Now,
some
is the
answers.
subscription just for our school? Like, or if there's an away game and they have the system, can we watch it for, like an away game?
Beautiful question, and I'm glad you asked that. So let's hypothetically say we were playing Callahan in volleyball. So it's not hypothetical, we really are. I believe it's April 22nd. So we go to Callahan, play volleyball. They have the Pixelot system in their gym. They've already got it set up. So you would go to the NFHS, all right, and you would go down the menu. You'd find Callahan High School in Colorado. You click on the link and you could watch our volleyball from Callahan. If we played at Peyton.
All right, so the subscription move, okay, nice.
Yes, yes.
I like
You had a
that.
question, Paul.
Well, and I also noticed that it's always, every game, be it volleyball, basketball, they're trying to find somebody to record the game.
Mhm.
Exactly.
This way, they can just watch it and have it. Will these games be then potentially uploaded to YouTube? Hey, we can go here and,
And that's something that I'm still learning.
okay.
I don't know. But every game is recorded, just like I said. Any of the coaches can say, can I record my practice? They can go back and watch the practice.
So that's
The coaches, I believe, will have access to a link that they can then download and do stats for a
Oh,
game.
nice.
And that's a lot better than having somebody sitting there with the iPad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the key to this,
Okay.
where somebody's holding an iPad or a laptop and they get to talk and all of a sudden it's at the ceiling or whatever.
Someone,
Cameras are
yeah.
mounted on the wall and focus on the events. Okay?
You said one camera for each field. How's that gonna cover the whole court? Is it actually more than just one camera?
It's a 2-camera system. Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
yes.
so be able to cover it all.
Yeah, it covers it all.
Nice. Well,
Sweet.
thank you.
That is awesome.
That is great news.
Great.
Good news tonight. I'm digging it.
Any more good news?
Yeah,
Okay, sweet.
all right. Who else wants to stand up? Just very quickly, thank you, Brett. We talk about leaving legacy with each senior class. He's leaving his legacy, and it's part of what we do even as adults. So it's cool. SCAP, we have SCAP coming February 17th. We have begun the process of getting ready. We had them here last January, whatever. Do you remember the date? It was middle January. The problem was they came in and they came to the gym and we had no Wi-Fi, and it was not Chuck's fault. We just weren't prepared. And there was 60 people or so. We did not have this. We did not have much. We still got good evals, but we didn't have, now we're in COVID and Chuck's work, we don't get to show up. We specifically built all of this, Chuck, to the work in holding people here to show off what we got. We have this building. So what we're going to do is, it's February 17th, is it's all virtual. We're going to do a video and we're going to present it and show it as much as we can. They'll be back. But I was a little disappointed because all the work Chuck has put in and Pat with her help, and I'm just so proud. I just don't know what else to say. So that's, Chuck, you want to stand up? Okay. Then last item I got is COVID. As we stated, we started this week. Attendance during our period from November 10, 2020 to January 16, 15, 2021. PHE was at 87, almost 88%, down about 5%. The JSHS was at about 93, and we were status. As a district, we were at about 92, down about 3%. Here's why I think that's big. I have comparatives that I use. Where are we? How good is that? And I will just say publicly to our staff, to our folks, to our facilities, teachers, kids, you rock. It isn't normal. Most school districts are significantly less. I get to do these meetings, a lot of them, to hear. And I will tell you, it's being recorded. We are way ahead. Does that mean we're perfect? No. We've got challenges like everybody else, but I just can't say enough about it.
We're moving in the right direction.
We are.
We have a great
I'm
team.
so
in
proud.
place.
And then the vaccination update. I sent that out originally. Our BOCES director, Pat, he's got connections with Centura Health, and he thought because they had surplus in Colorado Springs that he could slip us in. He had a doctor that he works very tight with that said, let's not waste this vaccine. And the state came back and said, you're breaking the law. Can't do that. And I'm saying breaking the law. The guidelines are not being adhered to, and there were a lot of things that went into that, but it didn't happen. So it was a good idea, but our staff and our right below dotted line under 1B, we're thinking about March is first week or so in March is when we're hoping we get vaccinations. So, there you have it. Thank you.
That's it?
I can give you more. Happy. Anybody else want to stand up?
Oh, I think Pat's gonna stand up here in a little bit.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so that brings us to 7.0 DAC report. I believe it's still on.
Yes.
So Tim covered most of it,
I always-
but you keep it consistent, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
So we went over attendance rates. We started to review the budget a little bit, but a more defined one will be presented, obviously, by Pat. And then after the board meeting, when we do our review it, if we decide that there's questions, comments, concerns, we might make a special DAC meeting for that, but see how it goes. He talked about the ESSER 1 and 2 grants, PHE testing, happened today, I believe. Right, Michelle? Sports starting up again, but I heard about that already, so buildings are clean and ready to go. The DAC tab has moved on the website, so I don't think a lot of people necessarily knew where it was, so we're really excited to have the idea of putting it under the board.
So it's more prominent now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
So that way people can see, and then making sure that we get the agenda up prior to the DAC meetings. So if people are curious or have feedback or whatever that looks like. We also toyed with the idea of possibly having an email for DAC. So if somebody wants to reach out to us, let us know, hey, this is something that we'd like to know about, we'd be able to present it that way, kind of have a little bit more involvement. So that was a great idea presented for us. For Prairie Heights, obviously that grant, especially being a parent at Prairie Heights, thank you, thank you, thank you. We look forward to it. I mean, I know my son loves reading, so being able to continue that will be amazing. And Michelle's been working with the PTA to find different ways to help kind of like reward the students and kind of keep that going. So very excited about that. And then the junior senior high update, the long term was hired for next year for Miss Conklin. So in a nutshell,
And I've heard great things about her coming from my seventh grader. Every day now she's like, oh my gosh, this lady. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad that you think she's a keeper.
it felt really good. And so
Yes.
to be able to hear that feedback from the teachers
Yes.
themselves was really like reassuring too. So
Yes.
great.
Well, I know the students are very happy about it, so they like hearing about all of her adventures, I guess.
Ah.
I guess she has been places.
It's been around the world. Huh?
Yes,
She
Nice.
taught 3 years in Thailand.
yes. My daughter told me to actually, sorry, Aspen, but she came home and in the car ride home, she was like, Mom, she's so young and she has so much experience. Like my daughter just is like enamored with her. She's like, she just might be one of my favorites now. I'm like, okay, well, good for that. So
Awesome.
she's very excited.
Awesome. Thank you for the report. All right, that brings us to 8.1, 2021 Comprehensive Policy Review Process and Status Update. Mr. Secretary, sir.
So what we've done is with the board assistance help that we have, we're kind of doing a circle around with all the policies that we have already gone through. For those that might not know, we actually have a policy manual with a little over 400 policies. And over the last 2.5 years, we went through and attempted to revise all of those policies. Unfortunately, as we went through that functionality, that when you go from approving a policy, then it needs to be put on the Google Drive or put on the website. There's a lot of housekeeping that we're finding out that we need to do. So we have somebody that's helping out with that, and they're systematically going through all the policies. And what we're doing is, or what they're doing, I'm more of so far just kind of an answer man when I can, but they're going through the CASB core manual, checking ours, making sure that our date is later than their date, because if CASB says you should have had this by December of 18, our date of adoption should have been like January of 19. So they're going through, and so far they've made it all the way up to the last report I had to start the J's, and the J and the G's are our largest policy groups. And in the A's, there's about 10 that they haven't found, because part of the problem is just with the change of hands of administrations is some of the policies didn't make it to the drive. So we're having to find where the policy that came to the board was. And once we find that, that's the policy and it goes up. But there's about 10 we need to hunt down out of the A's, 2 or 3 out of each of the other groups up to J. So a lot of hard work is being done. The goal is once they make it through the J's and the G's, the board may have some work where we will actually have to kind of double our work, because if we can't find the reference policy that we approved, we'll need to reapprove it so that it's right. And then we'll have that comprehensive policy review totally done. And then it'll be time to circle back and look at the policies that CASB's asked us to update since then. We've got a bunch of them that we're redoing tonight, about 15 that were updated due to COVID. But typically within a year, there's probably average about 10 to 12 policies that change. A lot of them are after the legislative season. So we should be able to keep a handle on it. And we're going to have a lot better handle on what's where. We're going to set up a mechanism where we have a public Google Drive that has all of our policies that are approved. Then we're going to have a drive that the board and administration can look at that has those same policies so that we have redundant. And then we're going to have a third repository that's going to have all of those policies in a Word document. So whenever we have to change them again, we can pull out the Word document, rename it, and update. Because one of the initial problems we had when we were doing this is we had policies that were from 1993 and we only had them in a PDF version. So somebody had to retype quite a bit of policies. And Mr. Underwood used a lot of his time to do that when he was traveling. Because he's like, I had nothing better to do, sit in hotel rooms. So he did a lot of typing. So we're at a good place with it, but we do have to continue to keep on it. And hopefully we'll have some closure to at least this initial round, probably in about 6 to 8 weeks. It just depends on how much of those J's are lost or G's, because the J's are the policies that deal with students. So there's close to 100 of those. And then the G's are all our personnel policies that deal with our staff. And there's probably about 60 of those. Those are our 2 biggest policy groups. So there's still a lot of work done, but there's a lot of great work that has been done. And beyond the great work, it's figuring out the process of how we need to do it so that when the next board goes to do it, it won't be as an exhausting process and take 2 years.
So last count from CASB Core Policy Manual, there are 82 Gs and 112 Js
Yeah, so
for a total of currently in the CASB Core Policy Manual, 395.
395.
There was a point where we were over 400, but CASB deleted some stuff. All right, thank you, sir. That brings us to 8.0. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Smith on the comprehensive policy review? All right, that brings us to 8.2 Superintendent Search Committee update. Mr. Treasurer, sir.
Okay, we had our meeting, Dwight and I, and picked the members, and we went with 7 instead of 5. And they are posted on the website if you want to see who they are. There's 3 community members. Actually, there's more community members, but there's 3 community members, 2 board members, 1 a teacher and 1 certified,
Right, other staff member.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think we had a great group. We had our meeting and our first meeting, we have another meeting next week. But our first meeting, we went through a lot of stuff and they had a lot of great ideas. Dwight's writing up the ideas, getting it all ready so we can review it. All of us are going to review it next week. And then we'll post it for see if we can find the candidates. And that's about it.
Awesome.
Anything else you want?
No, it's
Okay, good.
But
I think we picked great, the crew we picked, I couldn't ask for a better group.
No.
They come up with some great ideas.
I will say from listening to the meeting last night, I would encourage anybody who can log on and listen to those. It was a great back and forth with everybody
Yeah.
on the committee, and I felt it was carried very well.
Yeah, and I think one of the greatest things was,
Email the link or is it
It's on the website. Yeah, so one of the things that I thought was really unexpected for me is, everybody has different experiences, different backgrounds, and different perspectives. And there's a couple people in the meeting when I was listening to it last night that, had an idea or two that like I would have never thought of, just because of the way my brain works and my background. So it's
I
really
agree.
good that we picked such a diverse group.
Yeah, well, 4 of them have been on a committee similar to this and I learned a lot from those 4. Couldn't believe it. Just sat back and listened. I learned a lot.
Good.
So,
All right. So yeah, no, the job has not been posted yet.
Nope.
They're going to agree on next Tuesday.
next Tuesday, we have a meeting.
They're going to agree on the job description, what the posting's going to look like.
Right.
And then we'll get it
Hopefully
up
we're gonna
posted
do it Wednesday, we hope.
Wednesday. Okay.
By Friday, we want it up. So we'll let it go for 14 days and then
Right.
we'll,
So here's the thing. We have a very tight schedule on this.
yes, we do.
If you guys feel, and I don't mean just you two, the entire
No, all
9-person
7 of us.
committee, right?
Yeah.
Or 7 person committee feels that you need the timeline extended, then you need to let us as a board know, because
Right.
we wrote the end date in the resolution.
And that's exactly what Dwight told us all last night in
Okay.
the meeting. So yes.
So if you need an extension, we have to do that. We are going to have we're going to have a special board meeting between now and the end of January for second read of the budget. So if you guys have figured out by then whether or not you need to extend, we can certainly add it to that meeting agenda.
I think kind of as we were kicking around last night, we'll know more once we get all of our applicant pool,
Right.
because that's what's gonna take the most amount of work is when we whittle down our applicant pool. So if we get like 40 applicants, we'll be like, we probably need to extend based upon that, and that's the time when we'll probably know for sure.
Okay.
So it'll be prior to the February meeting.
Okay. Anything else on superintendent search?
No. that's it.
All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to 8.3, proposed amended budget first read. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Don't have anything. Didn't make a formal.
That's
like
fine.
we did last time.
So I will say that okay, let me ask this. Is there any substantive difference between the budget that the DAC saw and the budget that we saw, other than the inclusion of the line items from the different funds?
No, there were some minor, just minor readjustments, but nothing like anything over like $500.
Okay,
It was just. from
great.
one
So
fund.
essentially what you presented to us is essentially the same that the DAC saw.
Yes.
Okay. So you didn't see the line item budget. So backstory history, that was a change that we made shortly after I got on the board, is that, again, it's not a requirement to present it to the state and all that fun stuff, but in our district, we have a policy, I can't remember, DBD probably, that says that we will do line item budgets here in our district. So I asked for it. I mean, obviously you have to have it if you're going to do the roll up, right? She had it. She just didn't present it. We have that now. But you're just going to cover you're not going to go into the line item, are you?
No.
Okay, good.
And I mean, I have it so I can show you that it exists.
Right.
But to put it up here,
No. Yeah, you're fine. It's available on the board packet. If anybody wants to review it, if you have your questions, board members, your questions should go to the superintendent. Community members, I would encourage your questions to go to the superintendent, but I can't stop you from emailing Miss Pat. So
I can always forward them on.
I love being a team.
Man, this is not real clear, is it?
it's all right. We get the gist.
So bottom line, property tax basically based on this, property tax shows it as being going down.
Mhm.
We budgeted 360,000 for property tax, and based on this, it's dropping down to 349. That's where the majority of our deficit is here. State share, because of property tax changes, state share is also changing. And that's dropping here. There's been additional funds in order to comply with CD and everything. I had to put the COVID funds in here. So this here, there's 27 here that they basically in October took from our state share and told us we had to then use that for COVID.
Oh, so
And that's
that-
at risk.
that 27 is accounted for in here,
No,
no?
that 27 came out up above where your state share is there.
Oh,
That
it came out of
27.
this.
Yes, sir.
Ah.
The state.
That's
and
called a
I-
shell game.
We can smoke in here.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. And there was
And they took a cut
Huge.
on the way.
Yeah.
They
there
took
was a
42
huge-
and they gave us 27. Government in action.
So that was, we were then told we had to use that at risk.
Okay.
And so they even supplied us with a template. They said, here, take your direct salary for, for teaching
Mm-hmm.
and plug your numbers in here and this is what you get.
Right.
We had to use our at-risk percentage off of the state shares and everything. And, with everybody else, for the most part, we had almost twice what we were allotted for usage there. But basically they took it out of our state share instead of allowing, state share is our general fund. We do with it as we have budgeted. When they took that out of our state share, it reduced it and we were told you have to use it for COVID money.
Got it.
Then down here is where the CRF money and our ESSER monies are budgeted. Those were added. In doing that, I then added the expense naturally that goes down with it. In the prior budget and in my prior presentation, basically the CARES money was all excluded because it was not budgeted in one place or the other here. So in budgeting for the income, I had to budget for the expense.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to cover everything, just the highlights.
The other major change that I made, there was nothing really made to any of the other funds other than to just move a little bit, from one expense category to another. The one thing I did add here, which one is it? I added a Fund 22, which we've not had before. We should have had it last year, and I probably will have to go. I'm fixing to go into audit here next week. So I'm probably going to have to add that in order to comply here. Fund 22 are for very restricted funds. What's in here that you see right now is the Education Sustainability Grant, which was a 3-year grant. And we started it last year and we got it this year and we'll get money out of it next year. Well, that is specifically for a specific individual and their expenses related to that and the consulting that goes with it.
So when we get the ELG money, is that going to go in here too?
I probably will if I need to read through.
Because isn't it all pretty much earmarked for specific special causes, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to make sure that, the things that we have to use specifically, I can go through and say, yes, we specifically put that expense against those funds.
Now, is it okay if you have multiple
Yes,
things in here?
they each have a grant code.
Okay.
They each have a grant code within this Fund 22.
So you
The
can
Fund
separate
22
it,
just
okay.
keeps it completely out of the general fund.
That's good, because
That's what I want.
yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we need to be accountable for those
Yeah.
specific funds instead of,
That's great.
and the amount of time it takes to go back and dig through our treasured little accounting system and try and pull out those bits and pieces that make up that, it's not feasible.
No.
That's why I
It's just not
chose,
having fun.
you know, yeah, okay. So that's why I chose to go start using Fund 22. What
I
I,
like
it took me and I did a lot of checking around and we're like the ones that aren't using it. I'm like, oh no, that's changing.
Nice.
Right.
I want to be able to account for these specific funds within this.
Definitely, and it helps with the transparency aspect.
Well, and these funds can roll. If we don't use it all in 1 year, I can at least roll it to the next year.
Yeah.
Trying to yank that out of the general fund and say, oh, we need to roll this much.
Yeah.
It gets very complicated.
Oh, yeah.
And then also the good thing with this too, is if it's specific money or one-time money, we're not gonna be relying on it
Yes.
in our general
Yeah.
fund from year to
Exactly.
year. It's gonna be partitioned
Yeah.
away
Yes.
so that it doesn't get lost within the big pot.
Exactly,
I
And then
like
we
it.
expect it every year
exactly.
and wonder why we don't have that.
Well, and anything that we, are anticipating that we can put into our budget that is specifically earmarked, we can put it in here. And it will not affect our general fund for budgeting
Nice.
in our look forward stuff either.
That's great.
That is great.
That was my biggest change here. And like I said, there were 2 grants that should have been put into this last year. And I'm diligently working through right now to pull that stuff out before audit and get it reclassified into here.
Awesome.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts. on
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I feel
And
so
have to give
guilty
her-
when I email her or have to call her on something, because I know she's Just-
Mhm.
doing all this stuff here.
So that was my big one with that. The rest of this, I did not really move money out of one fund into another or anything. What was in the general fund, aside from what I moved into that Fund 22. And I say initially, if you recall, I told you that this $84,600 wasn't even in the revenue budget for initially for this year. There were $14,000 worth of expenses, as you can see here, that were earmarked for this, but the revenue portion and stuff wasn't. So
And
that's basically an addition here.
that's Prop EE. EE. So if you want to look up what that means.
So, but those were the biggest things to the budget.
Sweet. And again, everyone, board members, community, audience, please feel free to review the detailed fund line items. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact superintendent with your questions. I don't have any questions. Does anyone else have any questions? Anything else we want to add on proposed budget first read? Or proposed amended budget first read?
There's your
Anything else
line
you want to say?
That is so
No,
great.
there's your line item.
Yeah.
So it's like, so
No.
please
No,
feel
we're
free to
good.
read, but.
Yeah.
And feel free to, shoot me an email or gather all your questions together and shoot me one or.
Everything she just talked about is in there, so.
Yeah, and
I deeply apologize.
and
for
it's in the
that.
board packet too, right?
We
Didn't
didn't,
understand that I needed to have the whole detail
no,
for you.
that's
too.
on me,
Hey,
that's on me.
I
So,
thought I already addressed that.
Yep.
Not pointing fingers, not
I
being.
just got one thing, Pat, when Randy calls you, make sure he knows you're working on this, so he feels more guilty, please.
Or he has the right tone.
Perfect, Paul, thank
There
you,
you go.
thank you.
All righty. Anyone else? I don't see anybody on the Zoom meeting that has raised their hand or done a Q&A. So I'm gonna assume they have no questions.
so can I just say?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Happy notes all, I will tell you. Great people surround themselves with even greater people. This is, and yeah, I'm pointing to Nick too, is the quality of where this district's going. And I gotta say it publicly, they hear it all the time and it's true. This place would be nothing without you. So thank you.
For sure.
Yeah, ditto.
Is your mask and shirt matching on purpose?
Let's move on the budget. Oh, we're done with that.
All right, anybody, seriously, anyone else on budget questions? Awesome. Okay, that brings us to 9.1, approve revision of regulation KDBR, public's right to know, freedom of information. Do I have a motion to approve KDBR?
I make a motion to approve KDBR.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, thanks, sir. So this was approved, temporarily approved first read last meeting, was it? No, no, this is the proper second read. It was 9.6 that we did temporary approval first read on. My apologies. Anyway, so what this does, this establishes a record custodian for core request and directs that if any staff member receives a core request, that they forward it to the records custodian and have the records custodian act on it. Questions, comments, concerns, discussion on KDBR? All right, call for the, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am.
I said it straightforward.
Okay. Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks? Aye. Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries. Brings us to 9.2, approve revision of policy BG, school board policy process. Do I have a motion to approve BG?
Make a motion to approve KD.
Do I have a second? Thank you. So again, this is, as Mr. Smith alluded to a little bit earlier, what this policy does is directs the biannual review of our policy manual against the CASB core policy manual to see what changes need to be done. It also directs that, so I don't know if you guys get these, but there's these two special newsletters that come out of CASB. I can't remember what they're called. They're enumerated in the cover sheet, but also this policy requires that after every board meeting, if we are in possession of one of these newsletters directing changes, then we'll go ahead and process those changes to policy for the following board meeting. So that's all I have on that. Questions, comments, concerns, discussion.
That comes from CASB? Because I get letters from them, but I don't remember anything like that.
Well, you got to read into it, and as you drill down, and there's like a little article blurb, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, it says, "Hey, the legislature passed this law, which requires us to update this policy, and this policy."
Yeah, I've seen that.
And then those are all hyperlinks to
Yeah.
those three policies where you can go into the core policy manual and get the new.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
seen that. I just didn't dawn on me that's what it was.
Generally,
That
it's
is
the
true.
legislative session,
Yeah.
but where it can get tricky is if there's any current civil suit in the
Litigation.
district, any litigation. And then once that litigation is done, they might pop one or two out at an oddball time.
Okay.
But generally, you're right, it is legislative stuff.
And sometimes the way they do this is, you know, like, so like when the legislature passes a law, some of them are effective July 1st of that same year. Some of them are effective January 1st of the next year. And some of them are effective even the July after the year they pass it. And so, you know, CASB, if you got something that's not going to be law for 18 months, they don't work on those policies right
No,
away. They work
no.
on the ones for that immediate. And so you'll get every third, every fourth month, one of those newsletters that says, "Hey, you got a law coming up or a law that's going to be effective soon. So here's policy for it." So what this policy does, it says every month we're going to look at those newsletters and then process those policies for the next board meeting. That's all I have. Any questions, comments, concerns, discussion on BG? All right, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks? Aye. Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, so that brings us to 9.3. Approve the future superintendent contract structure. Do I have a motion to approve 9.3?
Also move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, so in concert with the search committee, I felt it was necessary for the board to agree on the future contract structure of the superintendent so that we could give them guidance so that they could answer questions if they're given questions, or maybe potentially inform prospective candidates about what we intend. And the proposal on the table is a 2-year contract with an optional 3rd year based on what's it? Satisfactory evaluation. Thank you. I had a little bit of a vapor lock there. Satisfactory evaluation, and if both parties agree. So it's not necessarily just satisfactory evaluation. And so, you know, you guys had a long discussion about that last night.
We did.
How we didn't think a 1-year contract was enticing enough, and that
Don't
maybe
give you time to really figure out.
yeah, it doesn't give you time to do anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, the kind of sort of the idea is that, you know, 1 year to get their feet wet, figure things out, how they want to make changes, what they want to change. 2nd year to move forward to make those changes. And then if the 2nd year evaluation is satisfactory, then we'll give them a 3rd year. Because, you know, I mean, I'm not a big fan personally of just, oh, hey, here's your 3-year contract. Because we've been down that road. So any other questions, comments, discussions? Everybody happy with that?
I think the whole committee was.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, that's basically what you guys said you wanted last night, but in order for you as a committee can't make that decision. The
Nope.
board needs
Board
to make
does.
that decision. So,
That's exactly what Dwight said last.
oh, good. I try to listen to most of it. I didn't catch it all. All right. Anything else on superintendent contract structure? All right. Hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries. Brings us to 9.4, temporary approval, first read, virtual school board meetings. Do I have a motion to approve 9.4?
Make a motion to approve 9.4.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. All right, so let's see if I can get there real quick. CASB changed well, actually what they did was they changed an exhibit to some policy in B that basically addresses 2 different policies. And I thought why would I just adopt an exhibit? Because generally exhibit's not, you know, doesn't have teeth. And so I figured I would just put those relevant changes in those 2 policies. One of them, and I believe it's BDA, says that on our notification of our meeting, we have to indicate if the meeting is 100% in person, 100% virtual, or a mix of in-person and virtual. And if there's any virtual component, the link to said virtual component has to be in the notification. And in our world, notification means agenda. So I changed that in BEDA. And then in BEDH, this says that we have to use a mechanism, virtual platform, if you will, that allows public participation to the same extent as if they were here in person. And I believe currently that the platform that we've chosen has those features. But
So that's CASB that's selling it?
yeah, that came out of the whole, if you remember, BEAA board member participation electronically. Yeah, that was a fallout from that. that I didn't catch because they added an exhibit to some other policy. I think it was probably BDH, but and so it wasn't until I went and started collecting the data for the comprehensive policy review from the CASB core policy manual that I saw this new exhibit, and I read it and I said, well, this is really two separate policies. So let's go ahead and adopt those changes.
And interestingly enough, in those changes, we were already doing.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
We
That's
were
We
compliant.
were
That's
already
something
doing
you
what
guys already come up with.
we're already
Absolutely.
doing what the policy
Yeah.
said, but now we're pretty much codifying it.
Right.
But apparently, obviously, if they created an exhibit for it, there's districts that weren't doing it.
Weren't doing it.
Right.
So, but we
But I know,
were,
yeah,
Yeah, we were fully compliant.
that's
Yeah.
something you guys all
Yeah.
come up with.
because the first time I read that, I go, we're already doing this, and Randy's
Yeah.
like, yeah, but now we're have to.
Right.
But that tells me that other people weren't doing what they're supposed to,
Right.
which is a shame, but.
Yeah. Well, it's the reality of the world.
But it doesn't affect the way we've done business, because we were already there.
Right.
So is that only during pandemic times or is that?
No, sir. From henceforth, if we have any virtual component of a board meeting, regular or special, it doesn't really address work session. But regardless, if we have a virtual component, we have to, just like we do now, we have to have the Zoom link on there. And we have to, like I'm constantly doing, checking Q&A in here and checking to see if people raise their hands, and allow them an opportunity to participate electronically in the same manner that they could as if they were here in person, or to the same extent, not the same manner.
But we could choose, say, hey, we're gonna do this all
In
in
person.
person and then.
And then they would have to be here.
Yes.
Good deal.
And if you remember a few months ago, I believe it was November, we passed a plan, if you will. We did not codify it in policy, but we passed a plan that says our board meetings are going to roughly follow the school status. But at the same time, we do have an obligation to the community. And there is a little bit of a legal component with sunshine law that we can talk about. But I think that instead of trying to set up the camera and do a YouTube live stream so people can observe the meeting, that what we should do is continue these Zoom meetings. So we will always have a virtual component henceforth, because we can set up Zoom to live stream to YouTube. Okay, so if someone they just want to observe and they don't want to participate and they don't want to log into Zoom, they can watch what's happening in real time on YouTube. And so I think because of all the technological problems we've had with getting good audio to the YouTube stream, we can sit here with a couple of the devices and get great audio, and satisfy that requirement, the observation requirement of the sunshine law that way. And that was kind of sort of a long-winded version of what our plan said that we adopted in November. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot tonight. Say something, Ed.
No, I got a question though.
Ask away, sir.
So we're gonna do this Zoom. Who's required to open it? You and the superintendent?
We did not specify that. Literally, I think all we really need to capture the audio clearly is just one device. Because if you'll notice,
One?
he's on mute. I'm the only person
Okay,
logged into Zoom who is not muted right now.
okay, I got you.
And so all the
Okay.
audio that's being recorded in Zoom
Right.
is coming through this iPad.
All right,
And that's all I have on that.
Good.
Questions, comments, concerns, discussion? Oh, and, okay, so I'm gonna look at Miss Emily and then kick Mr. Swayze. Committees sanctioned by the board have to follow the same rules as the board when it comes to public notification of board meetings or meetings, committee meetings. So you have to post the notification of the meeting on the district calendar and have an agenda 24 hours in advance.
So the DAC does as well.
DAC does. They are committee sanctioned by the board. And that is very clear if you dive into the case notes and the application notes of the Sunshine Law. It's not a committee established by the board. So, Wild Wild West, do what you want. All right, anything else on virtual school board meetings? Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks?
Aye.
Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries. All right, next, that brings us to 9.5, Park Board Building Request. Do I have a motion to approve 9.5?
I'll make a motion to approve 9.5.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, sir. So was it last month? Did we act on it this quickly? Last month, Park Board came before us and asked us if they could build a couple of buildings in the park. My only concern is that it would increase the cost of our insurance. We have checked with our insurance company. It will not do so. And so this is this action is to approve or disapprove the Park Board building 2 buildings on the park property. Discussion.
What are they gonna put in these buildings? I remember them talking about it, but I done forgot.
And how big?
We'll start them as soon as I go back to the board and all that, and then know I can come back to you guys with an exact start date and everything.
Yeah, what are they gonna put into it, Chuck?
The one is just a covered lean-to where the tractor pull is at, because the tent that we had that was giving them shade,
Yeah.
was destroyed and everything. And the other one is a 3-stage, like a amphitheater type stage, just to the east of the basketball court, so that they can have bands or whatever there, and they can use the basketball court as a dance floor.
I like it.
Can we make a deal with them? We approve that and they'll build us a bus barn too?
Is there gonna be power out there then on that, around that stage?
There's power in that area, yes.
In the area? Okay.
Nice.
All right, anything else?
Need charging for power.
So for the lean-to, basically the loafing shed you're building,
Yeah.
is that for the tractor pull participants or for the observers?
The observers.
Okay. So essentially it's just shade for those observing the tractor pull.
Yes.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, I remember walking away with a really bad sunburn on the back of my neck one year. All right, any other discussion on this action? All right, hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks? Aye. Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Aye. Motion carries. Yeah, Mr. Dusling, if you would please let us know when construction's gonna start, when they estimate it to be completed, that'd be fantastic.
Yes, sir.
All right, so,
All applicable building codes, all that.
yeah. Pull permits if necessary, all that fun stuff, right?
Yep.
All right. Brings us to 9.6, 2020 policy review, second read. Do I have a motion to approve 9.6?
I move.
Do I have a second? All right, thank you. All right, so for those of you that haven't caught up, last month, we found a bunch of policies that urgently needed to be changed I touched my screen. It looks like about 10 policies that needed to be changed urgently. They dealt with mostly staff-related things with respect to leave and health. And then there were a couple of student-related ones along those same lines, all wrapped up in the whole COVID thing that urgently needed our attention. And so we did a temporary approval first read last month. We have made no changes to those policies. So questions, comments, concerns, and discussion, please. All right, hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs?
Aye.
Mr. Ricks? Aye. Mr. Smith? Aye. Mr. Swayze?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. All right, motion carries. That brings us to the end of our formal business, well, mostly formal business this evening. Brings us to 10.0 information updates. It's Mrs. Combs' favorite part, she says.
It is. I love, because it's like the most personal part, I guess, you know, and I love seeing and hearing like exactly what's going on in what department.
And as always, I personally enjoy the details, and
Yeah.
it's amazing. I have no questions for anyone that provided updates. Do we have any, sir?
I just want to make sure you noticed on my report, the discipline for the last 2
Oh, yeah. The kids are behaving.
They're so
It's about data.
Yeah.
I want to make sure because you've made prior comments about that. I just want to make sure.
good.
Congratulations to our students for not having any disciplinary actions in the last 2 months.
I mean, I guess that is good though, because they're at home. They're like, they're in their, they're in their own environment. So like trying to get away with more
Parents might
things
have a
doing virtual
different-
learning.
I'm sure,
So
yes.
we start a
Mr.
policy-
McNerney, would you please collect that data from parents?
I was gonna say,
Ashley kept telling me about a kid that would always fall asleep in his class. I'm like, well, that's disciplinary. Like, you know,
Yeah,
there's only so much we can do though after a screen.
right.
It's actually good to see parents see what we see.
Yes,
And it's actually good. I think it's a good learning tool.
yes.
I think
You know what
parents,
I'm really surprised about is Aspen has came home all with no homework. And I'm like, so you go in person and all of a sudden you have no homework? When before during virtual, she was having like 2 hours to 3 hours worth of homework.
Hold
So,
on to that
I'm
thought,
enjoying it.
That's all I'll say.
No
Hold on to
arguing
that
at
thought.
night. I don't have to
We're
like,
getting kids bought back in.
yes,
That's
I'm
all
digging
gonna
it.
say.
I'm digging it.
You're playing the long game.
You're buying the parents
There's
back
no
into
playing.
it.
The kids is all real.
I think parents need to be involved a little more because there's way too many ineligible, way too many.
She
ineligible.
was telling me that.
The parents have got to get on their kids. When we're in virtual, we're not in school, parents have got to pay attention.
Mhm.
I was in a class every day. Every day I was in one
What-
of my kids' class.
Yep.
Mr. Williams, sir, what would you estimate to be the ineligible percentage of those interested in doing athletics?
Of those interested in doing athletics?
Yeah.
80%.
Well, okay, we're talking high school, middle school.
No, just go middle school. Don't give him them all. He'll
Middle
he'll
school's
lose the
bad.
rest of his hair.
Middle school's bad.
It would be scary to say, but I would say, I'd be afraid to say an exact number, but it would be a very.
More than half?
Oh, by far.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
High school, much different story, much different story.
Yeah.
The report is much smaller. And again, it's the maturity. It truly is the maturity, but I can only think of maybe 4 high school kids that would be
Yeah.
ineligible.
But there's no middle school basketball, is there?
No, but we do ineligibility anyway.
Well, I like it though.
Yeah.
I mean, it keeps Aspen in line.
But I
Well,
was reaching out to some of them, trying to get them to wake up. Hey, get into your class, get going. What's going on here? We had a teacher, I'm gonna mention this one too. We had a teacher that left her house, went to a student's house to get him on that
Wow.
iPad.
Wow.
He was not expecting it.
I
No.
can
All the
imagine.
All the students seen her in his iPad.
Oh,
So
that
is-
is amazing.
So
though.
did his
Good.
parents.
Kudos to that teacher.
Wow.
That's her job.
That might
That is some
have to
dedication.
register on your disciplinary report.
I'm not sure if he knew that.
Was
Oh,
it,
you know.
middle- what
Oh,
grade
you
was
know?
it?
you know,
Okay.
we actually talked about it at the staff meeting today, and the staff stood up and applauded her.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Kudos.
Me
High
too.
school,
I
middle
did
school?
too when I
That's
found
pretty
out
amazing.
from him.
Well, it goes to that ownership.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ownership of what we do.
That's the kind of dedication.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
she's that way. You got to understand her. She's that way. I love this lady. She loves kids.
Yep.
Loves kids.
I love it.
All right.
Although all our teachers do.
Anything else on information updates? All right. Thank you. That brings us to 11.0 other business. Do we have any other business?
just want to say thanks publicly to those who made these little deals for the board.
That's
Yeah.
Ivy-
Yeah.
Ivy League.
Yep, Ivy League. I forgot to
Very
mention that. I'm sorry.
Very cool.
And
Way to be self.
And I'm
and
gonna,
since Aspen Combs is on there, I think,
yeah, I'm keeping this forever because one day she's famous, I can say I have her signature, right?
That's all right.
All right.
Mom should pay for them all, so.
I will. How much are, I don't even know how much they are.
They're $59.50. We've been working on market and markup and profit. It is
It's been
about the
marked
math.
Yeah.
That's a good one. All right. Any other business? None? All right. That brings us to 12.0 adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Has anyone ever said nay to the adjournment?
I believe,
Don't even.
I believe